Germany's capital of the world. Welcome. You've landed right here on the Daily Objective from the Ayn Rand Center, UK. And we are so delighted you are with us from wherever in the world you are from. We come to you every day, Monday through Friday, with an original programming inspired by, Ayn Rand's objectivism, a philosophy for living on Earth, for enjoying your life, for making the most of it. I mean, life is about life on Earth, not a supernatural mystic heaven, however many years from now in the future. It's about living, about enjoying, about pursuing your happiness, pursuing your values. And that's what we do. I mean, as you said, objectivism is about living on Earth. So every day, and we're all students of objectivism, even people like myself who've studied it over 20 years, we're always learning new things from experts like James Valiant, Harry Binswanger, so many of the other bright minds that we have on this channel day after day after day, but we can only do it because of your help. We need your super chats. We need your monthly support because we have big ambitions coming up. We're going to be bringing you more programming, more in-person meetups in the UK and all over the globe. So we want to expand. I mean, God knows Ayn Rand's objectivism is so sorely needed now. When you look out on the horizon now, politically on any side of the aisle, it is reason-free. So help us help you to not only enjoy your life more, but influence the culture in it whatever way we can to be able to enjoy our lives and value them that much more. So hit us up on the super chat, hit us up as monthly subscribers, and keep watching as we continue to soar and bring you more original programming, as I said, day after day after day, in person and virtually as well. And of course, you're joining us on YouTube. Many of you start joining on our podcasting apps, Stitcher and the like. So we're come to you as a multimedia platform, the biggest in objectivist history, I can say, with some of the biggest and brightest names as well. Always learning, always exploring, always having great fun and valuing our life with you, our supporters and our members as well. So let's get right to it. We've got, I think, a really fascinating program for you today. You know, there's so much negativity out there these days, and elections and inflation and lots of doom and gloom out there, nuclear war in China and all this Middle East. So, you get the sense when you listen to many commentators now and even many philosophers that, these are tough times. Oh my God. We've never seen, I think I heard even former President Trump earlier this week saying, oh, we've never seen such a difficult time, a tough time. And it's not just him, it's people on both sides of the aisle, every side of the aisle. And to that, I say BS. I call shenanigans on that claim, that these are the tough times, the worst times, the most difficult times ever. In fact, I would take the opposite because of the reason in our life, even if it's just a small modicum of what most people use, certainly most governments use in terms of how they govern their citizenry, now is, in fact, the best time. Think about it. People now work less. They live longer in less stressful and certainly less physically demanding jobs than any time in human history. If you've ever done subsistence farming, backbreaking work, tilling the soil and topping the crops, that is really, really, really difficult, unhappy, literally backbreaking work. And not a life in which tremendous, I think, human values can be pursued. And the only reason that we're able to work so little now, enjoy so much wealth and productivity, is not because of a government program or because of altruism, but because of reason, as so exquisitely espoused by Ayn Rand in all of her work. And that's exactly, of course, what we want to get into every day, and inspiring you to pick up Miss Rand and learn from her work and learn from our experts as well. But let's get to the data here, because it is pretty shocking. I mean, I don't know, wherever side of the globe you're on, you probably got up somewhere and did something. My sense is, unless you're very, very young or maybe old, and maybe even if you're older, you have some type of job. Take a look at the annual working hours per worker throughout the US and Britain and Europe, going back to 1870 through near present day, through 2017. And what you see for our audio listeners is a almost beautifully, 45-degree angle headed down right, starting at well over 3,000 hours a year worked in the 1870s, 1880s, even into the 1900s, going down and down and down, not all immediately, but a steady decline down in terms of the number of annual hours worked per worker going back from 1870 to present day, from over $3,000 hours a year to, in many cases, in Germany, for example, under 1,500 hours a year. So, in Belgium, France, the US, it's not too far off from that. So think about it. You've cut your work life in half in just 100 years. That is a 50% decrease in the hours that you have to work to keep yourself alive. My sense is in the 1880s, you weren't spending too much time pursuing values. You were spending time putting literally food on the table, but you work 50% less now than you did even 100 years ago. Why? Because of government handouts and altruism? No, because of reason, technology, human advancement. And even since the 1960s, work globally now has gone from about 2,000 hours a year in the 1960s to 1,500 hours today. So we're talking about, some of you probably weren't alive in the 60s. I wasn't, but I was alive in the 70s. So we're talking about a 25% decrease in your annual working hours in just the last few decades. I mean, if you value your life, if you value pursuing your own interests, now, of course, work can be part of your interest, should be part of your interest, but just think about it on the toll on the body, how much less now we have to work because of man's mind, because of man's reason in just the last couple of days, last couple of years. Now, we are the Ayn Rand Center UK. So of course, we're going to focus on the UK for just a moment here. And the pattern is very much the same. In 1970, the average annual working hours in the UK was about 1,871 hours a year for the average person. Now it's 1,670. So even since the 1970s, you're working about 10% less than you were. And that's pretty remarkable considering the drudgery of many of those jobs. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But you're working less, you're earning more, you're living a higher quality life now than any time in human history. And it's only because of reason, it's only because of man's mind, technology, all the advancements that come with laissez-faire, that come with individualism, come with capitalism, that we're enjoying these truly fruits of individuals' labor. Here's Germany, 1970 to 2017, down 31% in Germany in just the last, 40 some years. Tremendous advancements in people's quality of life and tremendous decreases in the amount of hours people have to work to eat, to put food on their table, to live. Here's the US, down about 12% since 1960. I'm sure there's a in-depth cultural analysis of why that happens to be the case. My sense of America, many Americans enjoy work. There's a culture of entrepreneurship here. The goal isn't to retire and do nothing. So maybe that's one of the reasons that Americans, their number of hours worked have dropped a little bit. But overall, that trend is just down. And it's not just the hours worked. I think this is even more important to keep in mind. Often when we think of history, we think of time as being similar, like, well, now versus the 1970s. Well, keep in mind, in the 1970s, you didn't even have a freaking fucking answering machine on your phone. In the 1970s, you didn't know if someone called. You didn't know, or you had to wait around by the phone. So think about that's just one example. Unbelievable advancements in technology. There's no photos from the Dark Ages, but here's some good, wood carvings to illustrate that back-breaking, arduous labor that it took just to get food on the table in the Dark Ages. If you were lucky, I suppose you had an ox and a medieval a plow, but even look from this wood cut. You're trudging along in terrible shoes. You don't got no Doc Martens back then. You don't have any good synthetics. It's all animal hides in mud and hard labor, struggling to put a few, handfuls of maize or grain or whatever on your plate. This was really, really difficult work. And in fact, the majority of people back then, certainly in the Dark Ages, were engaged in farming. I've never worked on a farm. I've visited a few high-end farms and had wonderful bed and breakfast weekends. My guess is it's not the same thing. And thankfully, farming today isn't the same thing. Look at modern farming. This is a cockpit of a modern tractor where the guy drives it or the person drives it by him or herself. There's a whole computer set up. There's all these equipment that lets you move the thing and rotated around. I mean, it's all done literally by a push of a button, not diminishing any hard work of any farmer, but wouldn't you much rather sit in an air-conditioned cab on a seat with a nice cushion, doing dials with your hands and having your iPhone there, streaming a movie or doing something else, you know, in a cockpit, rather than with your hands and feet and arms deep in mud, trying to pull up each grain, you know, each just stalk of corn at a time? I mean, this is modern farming, and it's, again, didn't come from God, didn't come from altruism, didn't come from turning the other cheek. It came from man's mind and leaving people free to pursue their interests, to create wealth, and to share that wealth and allow us to trade that wealth with the world. Here's another quick example. Think about medicine back in the Dark Ages, right? I mean, you were working on that field, plowing all that stuff and getting all kind of scabies and all this shit all over yourself. You were dirty. You were, you know, in Dark Ages medicine was like bloodletting. Here's again a wood cutting. We don't have our photographs are not available, so we have a wood cutting. Back then it's like, oh, something wrong with you? Well, let me just bloodlet a little bit and see if that helps. Robert, who is one of our hosts here on the channel, he's also one of our YouTube subscribers. He makes the point, we are surrounded by the achievements of man. Do not take any of it for granted. This is why I practice gratitude on principle. I certainly agree with that, Robert. People like the medical innovators who turned, this was surgery back in the Dark Ages, right? You just get on a board and they start carving you up. And is it better now? Is it better? No, this is modern medicine. Look at this. This is a robotic spinal surgery going on. There's doctors there, but the surgery is being done by a robot, safe, efficient, effective. How does this happen? How did we go from bloodletting to modern medicine? Well, we'll give you an illustration in just a moment, but I'll jump the shark in saying that it's man's mind. It's man's mind that creates all these amazing pills. I don't know, everyone always seems so gaga over herbal medicine and natural medicine. I want the most latest medicine cooked up in a lab with all the advancements of man's mind and all the technology advancements coming, you know, every day to get these, like a pill or anything else that can really improve your life. I happen to be a juvenile diabetic, and believe me, the advancements in insulin technology in just the last 20 years allow me to live a healthy, normal life, even when it comes to life expectancy. And this is something, as I said, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, it just was not the case. Ashley Shrug makes the point that we're fortunate to live post-industrial revolution. I agree, and I believe Miss Rand herself made the point that, again, I'm paraphrasing, I hope someone will correct me if I'm wrong, that she couldn't have come up with objectivism pre the Industrial Revolution. So that was where you saw man's mind being applied to production, wealth creation, and the like. So don't forget that we're working less now, and we're earning way, way, way more. I mean, think about that difference. You used to think, well, if everyone's working less, so we're gonna be making less. Look at this chart, GDP per capita in England. This is adjusted for inflation. It's all kosher. And look what you see if you're on our audio chat listening. You see a flat line from basically 1270, which is the beginning of the chart, all the way through basically the mid 1700s. It comes up a little bit in the early mid 1700s. And then basically after the 1800s, it skyrockets. So what happened? Did the water change? Was like God not around for the first 500-600 years, and then God came down and said, all right, let me get to work here? No. There's a little something Ashley alluded to it called, the Industrial Revolution. Google's approximate dates are 1760 to 1840. But think about, just in your experience of trying to persuade people of your own ideas, maybe some of them pro-individualist, pro-capitalist, how difficult it is to change the ideas of a culture. So in my mind, I broaden out that benchmark even a little bit bigger, 1750, 40, all the way 1870, 80, 90. I mean, the Industrial Revolution is a long period of time. And look at the wealth it hath wrought. It's almost stunning to see the GDP per capita in England go from, less than $4,000 in 1800 to $25,000 just basically 100 years later. All that wealth's been created only because of man's mind, the technology that allows you not to have to pull that plow with the muck all over your shoes, but sit in the cabin, eat, a hostess, a cupcake, and watch the tractor do all the work for you. Here's the GDP per capita in the United Kingdom. Look at tremendous advancements, up 3x since 1955. People making more, working less arduous jobs, and earning way, way more in the process. And as I said, much, much, much better jobs. I mean, again, I think we have that tendency to say, oh, well, life back then wasn't so bad, because they think they would be still doing the thing they do now, way back in the old days. That didn't exist. Human life for much of human history, look at that chart I just showed you. Going back to basically pre-industrial revolution, human life was friggin' terrible. You were struggling just to get enough calories to put in your body to stay alive. And forget medicines and advancements and go to the doctor and get something. I mean, maybe if you were like the leader of the tribe, they gave you some kind of, eucalyptus root to chew on before you, developed gangrene and keeled over. I mean, that's if you were lucky. So human life for much of human history was awful. It's only after man's mind got activated, we stopped believing in God and heavens and started thinking, what can we do to achieve our values here on earth, using our minds to better our situation, using the earth and the environment around us. And for me, as you might tell, I'm not really a hard labor and subsistence farming kind of a guy. Doesn't really work for me. What does work for me, in my senses work for you, is look at today's jobs, just as contrast. I mean, as I said, 100, 120 years ago, everyone was in farming, everyone, except you were really the high-end emperor or king or tribal leader. Today, you can get a job as a content moderator. This is, what do you do? I'm a content moderator. And as this article from Insider points out, this wasn't even around in the 90s. There wasn't any content to moderate. This is a job that my guess is you don't do it digging through the mud and pulling up bushels of hay or whatnot. I mean, this is a pretty easy physically job, being a content moderator, as against, subsistence farming. What about being an influencer? I mean, I don't know how many people necessarily can make a real living off of this, but just the idea that you could make money, you could have some type of income over simply being an influencer, clicking around on your phone in effect. I mean, this is something that didn't even exist, as Insider points out, 10 years ago. And a little bit more kind of technical now, less away from the kind of the showy. There's this whole still burgeoning industry in 3D printing, but it's smart and it's advanced, but it doesn't, as Insider points out, doesn't operate itself. This technology needs technicians, it needs operators, it needs industry to kind of put it into effect. So it's expected to grow even greater than the $21 billion it is. So you've got all these jobs that simply didn't exist 5, 10, 15 years ago. And this is the thing I think Ms. Rand emphasizes, certainly in Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal, is that there's an unlimited amount of jobs that can be created. You'll never run out of jobs. We never run out of wants. We never run out of desires. There's an unlimited amount of jobs that could be created. What about being a drone operator? I mean, this is one that I can remember when Amazon announced, I don't know, maybe it was 10 years ago, that we're going to be doing stuff by drone. I was like, come on, really? It seemed so far-fetched. But these amazing men and women who power our economy forward with their minds, with their abilities to coordinate capital and coordinate brain power and coordinate trade. Well, now, you could get a job in the not too distant future as a drone operator, not just military drone, a drone operator in any of these, or a drone technician. So my best example of this type of new jobs I got from Harry Binswanger. Harry, you see on this channel every Monday with HBTV. Harry was a student and colleague of Ms. Rand's. In fact, he co-published his book, the Ayn Rand Lexicon, under Ms. Rand's authority and under his tutelage. So he knows a little bit of something about objectivism. Harry once told the story about how in America today, you can get a job as a pretend doctor at a girl or at a doll hospital. American Girl is a very popular doll store brand. They sell very fancy, nice dolls. And oh yeah, they have a doll hospital. And this is from the website here. They have all types of treatments, skin cleaning, eye replacement, hearing aid placement. You can get a hearing aid for your doll, skin cleaning, limb tightening. So your dolly has a little ouchie or whatnot, you can go to the American Girl. Now, I know what you're saying. All right, well, hospital, they probably just, throw it on the conveyor belt and send it back to you in 6 or 8 weeks. Oh no, this is like they have a whole fake, real, but fake hospital with in this case, it's a young woman wearing a doctor's outfit. They welcome your child in. They explain what they're going to do, these fake procedures. So yeah, you can get a job being a fake doctor to children's dolls. That is how much wealth has been created in this world, in this country, post-industrial revolution. And it's only man's mind that creates the technology. I mean, this woman or people who work as, they would be doing backbreaking labor not too many years ago. We all would have been. It's only but for man's mind that we don't. Ms. Rand says in Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal, in order to sustain his life, every living species has to follow a certain course of action required by its nature. The action required to sustain human life is primarily intellectual. Everything man needs has to be discovered by his mind and produced by his effort. Production is the application of reason to the problem of survival. And look at the production, we have. Look at when you go on Amazon, how you can get literally anything that's ever been produced sent to you in 48 hours, maybe 72 if you really have to wait. And that is, in my opinion, exactly what Ms. Rand alludes here. It's the application of reason to the problem of survival. And as these statistics point out, we are surviving now as good as we've ever survived as a species in humankind. Thank you to the producers of the world, and thank you to those of you who keep us on the air. We want you to start by reading Ayn Rand, understand the importance of reason in your life and man's life, and how reason is what powers everything forward. And we did a show on this a couple of weeks ago, that it's not luck, it's not prayer, it's man's mind that makes wealth happen, that creates the wealth that we all enjoy. So we appreciate your support. We're here Monday through Friday, and we're able to be here because of that support. So take the opportunity. I mean, think about it. You got Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus and all these guys. You're sending. Yet here you are with the Ayn Rand Center UK. Disney ain't bringing you objectivism. Netflix isn't bringing you objectivism. They're probably bringing you some woke thing with like you get it, some kind of fill it in here. But we're bringing you objectivism, our understanding of it as students of objectivism from some of the biggest minds in objectivism. So help us do that by hitting us up on the super chat. It's like £5 a month, £20 a month, £5 on the super chat right now. It means so much to Razi, to Daniel, and the real enthusiastic team that keeps us on the air. We'll be back here tomorrow. And don't forget that at 7 p.m. UK time tonight, it's Finance Friday with Jim Brown. Jim is a super successful guy across finance. And he worked with some of the biggest investment firms in America, really knows his shit. And we're bringing you Jim for free, with an interesting perspective. Jim has a program today called The Cause of Record Corporate Profits. Is it greedflation or excessive money? And we're hearing a lot about, greedflation now. It's like, oh, corporate raiders are just, packing their pockets, exploiting inflation, et cetera. Jim's going to get into all of that, 7 p.m. UK, and with a perspective that you're really not going to find anywhere else. Thank you, Ashley. Ashley says she's sitting in AC, working on a computer. And that's pretty nice, right? Ashley, as opposed to being out in the hot sun, shirt off, perspiring, backbreaking work for hours and hours a day, 7 days a week. So thank man and thank capitalism for doing it, and thank Ayn Rand for being the only one to make these not just practical arguments, but moral arguments as well. We appreciate it. We'll be back here next week, and keep it tuned right here. Set us, do the little bell thing so that when Jim goes live at 7 p.m. UK, you can tune in and be among his enthusiastic supporters. See you next week. And from all of us at the Daily Objective, we're wishing you best premises. Be well.